I can say they 5X'd in my time there. They were early stage,
Amazing.
so they were at let's say around a
5X.
few tens of thousands in MRR, and then they are now at multi-million ARRs.
Marketing is about values.
Nike didn't call me and sell me this in a catalog. I bought this swoosh because it's ingrained in my soul.
When you have a product that really resonates with customers, the word of mouth grows like wildfire.
Welcome to the MarketingMax show. Now, let's dive in. Yash, Chavan, thank you for coming on to the show. You are based in India, right? You're
Correct.
Where are you right now?
I'm in Mumbai, India. Yep.
Very cool. So we first connected because I think you reached out to sponsor my newsletter.
Yes.
And you ran some ads in the newsletter, and then like a creepy stalker that I normally am, or smart businessman, whichever way you fall on that decision. Yep. I found you on LinkedIn, and I learned that you are the head of growth for Sunsama. Yes. And I've always been fascinated by the company, and it would kind of coincide with the timing of launching this podcast. And I immediately thought, I got to have Yash on to the podcast. Like I have to learn more about your experience as head of growth over there. I also did some digging, and you've had some other amazing marketing opportunities, or marketing roles, I should say. And now you're the founder of an influencer marketing platform. So we'll dive into all that, but would love to just start if you could give us a little bit of background on who you are and kind of maybe a brief summary of your marketing career, what you're passionate about, and we can go from there.
Sure. How far do you want me to go? Do you want me to just like start like from college or like my past life? Where do you want me to go? How?
But, I'm always interested in past life stories. So, whatever you feel is relevant to getting to know Yash Chavan.
Okay, awesome. Yep. We'll start in this world just to not make this too Tim Ferriss-y. Start in this world. But yeah, I was basically like every Indian ever. I was in engineering college. Did not like it. Was not for me. So I was like, you know what? And I always had it in me that I wanted to start a business or be on the business side of things, not on the engineering side of things. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start get a sales job or something like that, right? Because that was the common advice. Like, hey, if you wanna be in business, learn sales. Like, you have to be a salesperson, right? So I'm like, cool. And then I did some odd sales jobs, random. I sold gyms. I sold just stupid things. And then eventually I got a job at a fintech startup here. I was the 7th team member there. So I've always been the guy who's at the very, very early stages of a company. I've never really worked at a big, I've never worked at a company that was more than maybe 15 or 20 people. So I've never worked at a big organization. Always been at startups. And then that has been defining for me really. So yeah, continuing my story, got the sales role. I was the first sales guy there. So they were just a group of engineers and I was the first salesperson. They had no real customers except for some beta users from referrals and things like that, early stage. Maybe had 10 customers. Then I went on and I had zero clue what I was doing because I was also brand new. I was still in college. So I was like, what do I do here? And then I just started cold calling our ideal clients because I was like, you know what else are you going to do to get people? So I did some cold calls, and then I remember the very first cold call I did, I ended up closing the person. So that really hit me. And then I was just all in on sales after that. So I did sales for a while. And then eventually I discovered marketing and growth, read some books. And I was like, you know what? Marketing seems to be more powerful because when you do sales, you're into psychology and things like that. And then eventually I found marketing. I'm like, you know what? This marketing thing sounds much better than sales because it's one to many versus sales is one to one. So I don't know, it gave me a feeling of power, something like that. If you were to psychoanalyze it. And then did some went into marketing roles and then eventually started my agency. That's where you see all the the interesting roles pop up on my LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn is not even fully complete because we've started a niche agency where we used to work with tech founders. So exactly with the situation I said, where you're a group of techies, you've built a platform, but you've got no real growth coming in. So we used to do the early stages of growth, and then eventually I found Sunsama, and they were a really good client. And then as I was rolling the agency off to start my own thing, I just got absorbed in-house in Sunsama, head of growth. So yeah, grew Sunsama from pretty early stages to about more than a couple of million in ARR. So Sunsama is doing really, really well. And yeah, since then, I always wanted to start, like I said, start my own thing, and then eventually found a problem in the influencer marketing world. It was just too complex and too expensive. So we made it simple and easy. So yeah, that's the story so far. And now I'm the founder at Saral, which is a simple and affordable influencer marketing tool. So yeah.
Wow. Wow, what a career you've had. I absolutely love that you said in India they say if you want to get into business, go into sales.
Yes.
That's a common thing over there, huh?
Yeah, it's like I don't think that's necessarily a common thing in India. That's just something that I heard like online. I was never tapped into the zeitgeist here. Like in India, there's not much of a like a discussion about even being in business, because yeah, like historically we've been a socialist, because when we do you want to dive into this, when we
Sure.
got into like, so 1947 was when we got independence, right, from the British, and then so that's when we were independent, and then the US was against us back then, and then we allied with the Soviet Union, and they were communists. So we ended up in the Indian economy up until 1991 was very socialist. So the culture still is a lot of very like, I would say like very conservative. There's not much of a like a business culture, although that has changed quite a lot in the last say 10 years. There's been rapid growth there, and of course I think you probably already know like all the startups that are coming in from here and so on. But that is rapidly
For sure.
changing. But in general, like maybe like 5 years ago when I started, in my career there was no like that going into business was not like a socially acceptable thing to do. But yeah.
What made you want to go into business? Were your parents into business, or were they entrepreneurs, or just
No, so I'm the first like business guy in my family. I don't know, just always was there from ever since I was a kid. Like I remember selling this like pen in school that used to light up when you used to like write with it, and because there was like a pressure sensor in it or something, I sold it for like, I used to get it for like $5. I sold it for $10, something like that. But yeah, I've always been like
Yeah.
selling things, and I always had that, and it was more of I'm just doing my own thing. I was always like the rebel type of, I never used to like fit in and so on. So, but I was good at studies, so which is an interesting, because usually like the entrepreneur origin stories, they always sucked at school, nothing worked, and then I started my own thing. I was actually really decent at school, so I don't know, but yeah.
So you and I have one major thing in common and one thing definitely not in common. I was an awful student. I graduated high school and college both with around a 2.7 GPA, barely passed college. I mean, I flunked
see.
out of 2 or 3 different math and quantitative business math courses and had to retake those, negotiate with the professors to give me a D plus, which meant that I didn't have to retake it.
I see.
And yeah, and here I am, you know, doing all right. But on the other side of that, the thing that we do have in common, you said like when you were, you know, 5 years old or something, or when you were young, when you were a kid, you would make up things to sell for $5 or $10. When I was in 5th grade, I was making name cards for our class, and we had these like Hoig bucks. My teacher was Mrs. Hoig, and so I think it was every week, if we like did a good job on like the pop quiz or the spelling bee or whatever the hell it was, we'd get like 5 Hoig bucks. And so I made these really cool designs because there was a design award, and I would sell them to my friends for 5 Hoig bucks each. And that was like my first real exposure to making something, selling it for money. And I was like, this is so amazing. And then I was able to spend it on like longer recess or pizza lunch or whatever it was. And you know, you and I both had that hustle from a very young age, which is awesome.
I like that. That is good.
Another thing you said that I love is, you know, marketing is one to many and sales is one to one. Can you talk a little bit about how you transitioned from your role as a salesperson as your role in marketing? Was Sunsama your first marketing role, or was there a role before that?
Nah, far from it. So in the same company where I was doing, Sunsama better. If the first time I ever did marketing, I got the results that I got Sunsama, then I don't know. I should not be a founder. I should just go all in on marketing, do marketing, right? But yeah, so in the same company, the very first, like my job in sales, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do the marketing as well. And then I just started reading some books. I don't know if you know, you probably know, right? Growth by the DuckDuckGo founder, Gabriel
Yeah.
Weinberg. Yeah. So that was like my first book that I read on marketing. And I was like, oh, okay, like there's this growth thing. And it's more than just sales, and sales is like one part of it. And it was just very exciting. So just started doing things there, built like back then built a proper like a acquisition system for them. From it was still like marketing but sales related, so stuff like creating content assets for sales, creating LinkedIn automations, like building a content program, things like that. And then eventually hopped on a couple other marketing roles where I did more of like the holistic. So then learned some Google ads, Facebook ads, paid media, did all of that. And then fundamentally I was always about learning the basics as opposed to learning any tactic. So I'm not like the best Google ads person or the Facebook ad person or whatever. But then I think understanding ad psychology and understand your users. I think at the end of the day, it doesn't even have to be, you don't have to learn psychology. But if you understand your users and what motivates them, what drives them, what keeps them awake, then I would say you're a marketer. So yeah.
Early on in my career, my very first job out of college was working at an investment bank. And I was charged with bringing on new clients, basically startups who would pay a monthly fee to help us, or for us to help them raise capital, introducing them to investors, helping them with pitch deck, everything else. And so I kind of learned sales in that job, and particularly in Wall Street, very different kind of Wall Street experience, Wall Street life. Like I was in sales, so I read a bunch of sales books, and I believe that my experience early on in my career, taking that investment bank, taking their revenue like literally 10x from the time I joined as junior business development person to head of business development. I think that really made me an amazing marketer, because to your point, I was able to learn a lot more about psychology, what it takes to get people to do what you want, and how to get people to buy things or say yes. How much would you say that sales experience that you had before your quote unquote marketing career led to a lot of that psychology and what you were talking about, the principles versus the tactics?
Yeah, 100%. Right. I think without sales, because I do speak with marketers who did not do sales before, and they tend to think in, I'm not like jabbing at them, just an observation. They tend to think in generalities versus thinking one-on-one. Because even with, I know I said that it's one to many, but at the end of the day, the transaction is still one-to-one, right? It's, yes, your ad is being shown to like 100,000 people, but for that one person who's reading the ad, it's still like a sales conversation through, say, an ad, right? So it's a video ad or a static ad. So having that sales background totally helped. And just like having the reps in sales helps you, because as marketers, we tend to be abstracted away from the user, because we're running a Google ad or we're doing a sponsored newsletter, and we don't know how people are reacting to the things we write or the things we say. Versus in sales, you see the person's expression. You're also like, pre-COVID, you're sitting in front of them, so you see the general vibe of the room change when you say certain things. And that, I think, one-on-one experience is unbeatable. Or even, you don't even have to be in sales. Like even if you, as a marketer, if you just do some cold calls, and like any business that you're a part of right now could use some cold calling, right? It doesn't hurt. So just do like 100 cold calls over 10 days and see what that teaches you. I think that's good. So yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. You and I have a lot in common, and I love that you bring up the cold calling thing, because my first ever internship, not job, my first ever job, I just mentioned investment banking, head of business development, but my first ever internship was actually for a private wealth management group, a group of financial advisors that helped people invest their money in the stock market. And part of my job was research and analyzing stocks and bond portfolios and funds to invest in. The other part of my job was cold calling lawyers in Manhattan. I had to call 100 lawyers every single day. And it was wild, because these massive law firms that have like 10,000 lawyers, 20,000 lawyers, they would print the phone number, like the directory on their website. You could call every single person. You knew that, Yash, Chavan, lawyer for real estate practices or whatever, his extension was 302. And so I would call and it would be 302 and I would get through. And I've never thought about it until this exact moment, but I can't imagine, just how impactful that learning and that experience was to my current marketing successes and failures, but to my current marketing successes, just realizing how to get people to quote unquote stop the scroll on a TikTok, how to get people, hey, don't hang up on me, don't hang up on me. It's not saying don't hang up on me, it's other things. So maybe that's a good little piece of advice. If you're just trying to get into marketing, you should get a job in sales and you should do some cold calling first, because it'll make you a better marketer.
Yeah, even like a month in sales, right? I think it would be massively beneficial. So yeah,
that's fascinating. So I want to talk about Sunsama just because I was so enamored by your growth there and the product itself. Can you give us a little bit of background into what the actual product is and maybe how you got hired and what the premise was for, the first few months of your role there?
Yeah, awesome. So good question. Sunsama, I had tried it before. I think I tried it probably a year before I joined Sunsama, and I had no intention of joining them when I tried them. I just tried it and I loved the product because I'm like the productivity guy. So I have like my calendar organized, I have everything tagged, I have Notion, I have automations and things like that. So using Sunsama is like a daily planner for people who are busy. So anyone who, if you want to save like an hour every day, use Sunsama. As simple as that. So it's like a planner that integrates with your calendar, that integrates with your email, with your GitHub, with your Trello, with a Notion, bunch of other tools. It pulls everything in one place, so you stop switching tabs, and then you just have a one focused view of your list, of your task list for the day. And it has the good thing that I like about Sunsama, even before, I'm not saying this as like their marketer or whatever, even before I ever joined them, was that it was very guided, which is something as a product philosophy I take with me even when we are building Saral now, is that they are very focused on what they want their customers to do, and they're very vocal about their philosophy. So they're like, hey, don't plan 100 tasks for today, because obviously you're not going to get them done, and then you're going to start feeling guilty about not getting done, and then the next day you carry that over, and then the next day is like 10% worse, right? So they build in, it's opinionated software, which I loved even back then. And they're very clear on who they want versus who they don't want. So that was very good. And then, so that's in Sama. It's like, if you want to have a productive life, use Sunsama. So yeah.
My research pointed to the fact that the founder, I believe, is in San Francisco.
Correct.
Right? And a good amount of their engineers are in San Francisco. So how did you land that job?
They're a fully distributed team. Some of them are in I think London, UK, Portugal, Canada. Not a big team, just like about I think 6 or 7 people. So yeah, and the founders they've been building it. So interestingly, funny story about, I mean, not funny, but like people don't realize that they've been building it from 2013. So they've been around for a long time. It's like almost like a decade now. So they build different things. Sunsama, as you see it right now, as the productivity app, probably started I think somewhere around 2018 or 19, if I recall correctly. Before that, they tried different things with like it's in the productivity space, but did not work out. So they've been at it. So that's another thing I admired about their story when I met with them, was that they've just been like dedicated, and that's a good thing to see. In founders, is that like we've been just at it forever at this point, right? So yeah, and then the way I landed that job was basically they were a client, right? So I started the agency after I did the like the marketing stints. I was like, okay, I figured out like a good playbook, I understand fundamentals, I can go into a company that has a certain, you can call it product market fit. Back then I used to call it case studies. So as long as you have proven multiple times that you can take a customer from position A to desired state B, I can help you scale that, right? So you're in early stage, but you have that product market fit where you can do these transformations for people. I can come in, understand your users, and basically sell to them better than you can, because maybe you're a tech or a product related founder. You don't know as much as sales and marketing. So I come in and I be the marketing and sales kind of brain of the company, right? And that my engineering background helped with that, because even though I hated it, I knew all the terms that techies would use, which usually marketers don't, right? So they liked that about me, and I realized that. And then so that's again understanding my customers, right? Or what they like, what they dislike, right? And so that gave me an edge. And yeah, I've been always working with US based company. So even after the first kind of the sales job that I mentioned, even after that, I was like, hey, you know what? I just like, why not go international? Because everything is on Zoom. And one thing I hate about Indian startup culture is it's very, which is I guess the case in Silicon Valley also. It's very Silicon Valley esque. It's very raise a lot of money, like throw a bunch of money on marketing, and see what works, which I did not appreciate. Versus in the US, of course there is that, but the market is more mature. So I did see that there was a more healthier approach to marketing and a smarter approach, in my opinion. So I like that, and that's why I just gravitated towards US based companies. So yeah, and then they did the agency, and then that's where we worked with Prisma, Niam, Cledara, which is a Spanish company, and a bunch of other firms. I worked with them, and then we found Sunsama. I think Sunsama, if I recall correctly, I must have seen like a video somewhere or something like that, and I reached out to them, or on a newsletter or something like that. And yeah, I reached out. I'm like, hey, got a good product. Let me help. And then I worked really, really hard to get them as a client. And then yeah, like I did like I put together like a thesis of how I would grow the company and so on. So I like went prepared, and then they really liked it. And they did not, I think they had hired a marketer before, but after that point, like after maybe 2018, 19, they did not have a marketing person. So they ended up hiring me, and that's we took it from there. So yeah.
I absolutely love the story of they were a client and then you basically transitioned from client of the agency to
Yeah,
head of
because yeah,
growth
the
for the
agency
startup.
got too, yeah. So if we want to talk about that, so the agency got just too chaotic for me because we had all these clients and it was bottlenecked by me. Which it was like my first proper business, so I did not realize that I should not be the constraint of the service delivery, especially in agencies, right? So I had me as kind of like the brain and like the main executioner. I don't know if that is, I think that's a bad word. I don't know. But
We know what you mean. We know what you mean.
Yep. And then I had a group of three more guys, and then we used to hire contractors and things like that if we needed help. But it was really like a scrappy operation with me being the lead. And there was no, if I stopped, so at that point I was just working like insane 18-hour days, hardly sleeping.
Yep.
But like, yeah, we were making money, but it was just so extreme. And I was like, you know what, and anyway, at that point, I was like, I don't want to do, I like to think I'm a long-term thinker. So I was like, do I see myself doing an agency business in 10 years from now? The answer was no. So I was like, you know what, let me sunset this thing. So we just basically picked our main clients. We just said no thanks to everyone else, and then slowly transitioned away based on like maybe they hired someone and then we trained them and so on. And then Sunsama was just good and nice, so I stuck to Sunsama. So that's how that happened. It's like a match made in heaven almost, because I was anyway kind of just like frustrated with the way the business was running, and then Sunsama happened, and then I was like, you know what, this is a good company. I think this is a good sign to just transition away. And yeah.
So day one, you are head of growth for
Yep.
Sunsama.
Yep.
You no longer have your agency.
Yep.
It's a productivity app, and I think it's like $10 a month, right? So the LTV
20.
isn't all that high. Okay,
Correct,
$20 a month.
Yeah. Still
The
pretty bad, yeah.
LTV isn't all that high, so you don't have a whole lot of room to work with on
Yes.
your cost to acquire a customer versus LTV spread there.
Yep.
What's your first move? What do you do? Is it Facebook ads? Is it SEO? Is it partnerships? Like day one, what
Yeah.
that's a pretty big challenge there. So what
Yes.
does the day one move
So
look
the
like?
way I'll tell you the situation before I joined, right? So they were working with, they had worked with a couple of agencies doing different, very tactic oriented. So like I guess I see it across tech founders. It's like, oh yeah, SEO. We do SEO, we do Facebook ads, we do Google ads. So very like tactic oriented and no real direction in terms of what's our marketing strategy in general, or our, I should call it marketing philosophy. Like, why are we doing the things we are doing? And Facebook ads, they were doing Facebook ads. So they were spending quite a lot of money on the budget on Facebook, and like more than 10K on an agency retainer, for like the separate, like a Facebook ads agency. So I was like, this is a burning fire. Let's just stop. So we took that in house, fired the agency. And then like I had to like refresh my knowledge of Facebook ads to get that under control. Turns out the agency was doing a pretty pathetic job at it. And then eventually got those costs a little bit under control, but it was just impossible to acquire on Facebook profitably, especially for like a $20 a month product that has like a long, because there's no payback also. It's not like I'm getting like $500, I'm getting 20 and it pays back over a long period of time, right? So there was no way that we were going to acquire profitably, which I realized after, let's say, about 2 months, just like cleaning up their Facebook ads, running test campaigns for a month. And I'm like, probably not going to work. And fundamentally, also, Facebook was tending to be a higher and higher CAC channel in general. So I was like, you know what, we're a low LTV product. I don't think Facebook ads is fit. So we eventually sunset Facebook ads. And the good thing about Sunsama, like you said, because you've heard of it from somewhere, right? They had very good word of mouth. So they have people on Twitter talking about them constantly. They had very good reviews on their support tickets. So people used to say nice things. And that I recognized that. And then I was like, hey, you're already getting word of mouth. Let's incentivize that because that's user behavior. We can count on that as a strategy. Let's incentivize that and work with people who are users who also happen to have an audience of 10,000 people on Instagram, right? So we did that, and then slowly like started an influencer program, very scrappy. So basically the strategy was stop the Facebook ads fire, try to get it under control. Was not happening. So just like sunset Facebook ads slowly, focused on in the influencer channel because that was pay per sale or pay per close basically. So we only used to pay a commission once we got a customer. So that was perfect. Quite the opposite of Facebook ads because we were basically paying them like twice or thrice what our LTV was essentially. So we're like, you know what, just complete opposite profitable channel. Cracked that over like the next 6 to 8 months, and then influencers really hit it for them because it was just like the pulse of the market, I think, in terms of having a profitable channel and in terms of also building a healthier business, because being reliant on a third party, it's again like paid media, earned media, owned media. So we went from paid to earned, and then since then they've gone from, I mean, they are still doing the influencer channel, but now they're also doing the owned media channel with like content and things like that. So again, going from paid, which is highest CAC, to like kind of like massaging it with some earned, and then now moving on towards own channels and content distribution and things like that. So yeah, that's
Man,
the
so many
that was the
questions,
story.
so many questions there. And it's
Tell
so
me.
interesting, right? Like very often you hear founders or marketers say, we need to get away from Facebook ads and we need to, I guess it's more founders, right? That they don't want to spend the $50,000 or $100,000 a month and the $10,000 a month on the agency. We need to get to affiliates. We need to get to, pay per performance, basically pay per new customer, affiliates, and word of mouth, and like turning customers into affiliates. That's what I mean.
Yep.
But what was kind of, you said it was a 6 to 8 or 6 to 9 month process. Any interesting nuggets as much as you can share about maybe what didn't work and what didn't work in terms of incentivizing existing users to share it with friends or coworkers or everything else? Because everyone talks about it, but I think very few people actually spend 6 to 8 months. They'll maybe like sign up for Partner Stack and they'll email everyone saying, hey, we'll give you 20% commission every person you send our way. And it's like, okay, well, it's a $20 product. I'm getting 20%. So you're giving me $4 every time someone signs up. Like that's not worth the even time it takes for me to text my friend, hey, you should sign up for this tool. So any insights or thoughts on, as much as you can share, what you worked through in that 6 to 8 months to perfect that, to turn it from a really no effective channel to a super effective channel?
Good question. So the way we started was, again, it was not a referral program. They had a referral program in place already, although that was not, like you said, it was just like hey, you get a link and you can share it with a friend. That was not was a negligible source of acquiring new customers, if that. So that was not working. And then the way we did it was we reached out to people. It's all about, again, I guess, also in like marketing and just life in general, it's all about the people who you reach out to. So we reached out to productivity influencers, of course, because it's a productivity tool. And then they all, I think fundamentally the product was just so good that it helped, right? That definitely helps. So everyone who tried it, who was on, let's say, an alternative, I don't like saying competitor because they're not competitors. Let's say such as an Asana or a Todoist or someone like that. When they tried Sunsama, either Sunsama was just a fit and they stopped using the other tool, or because Sunsama already had integrations with the other tool, it acted as a layer on top for focus and for managing oneself. They just loved it. And the way we approached the conversation was we used to give them an extended free trial. So we did not even mention commissions or anything of that sort. So we are like, hey, really love your content. We'd love to gift you a 30-day free trial. Why don't you sign up and test it out? And we used to do onboarding calls in the early days with influencers, just to like teach them how it works. Eventually we like streamlined it a little bit with videos and onboarding documents and things like that. But early days it was all just like scrappy. So we did that, and then that's how we started. The commissions question is really good because giving a 10 or 20% off a $20 a month subscription is not meaningful because they could get like $4. So we tried different affiliate incentives. I think the very earliest incentive that we had was we even have like done the thing. So like 10 or 20%, I think it was 20% in the early days. That did not really appeal to creators. Then we did a pay per trial, which is more appealing because then you don't have to wait up until the money comes in, because we knew what our conversion rates were. So we knew what our cost per trial should be to get a certain CAC, because we knew the trial to upgrade conversion rate. And based on that, we calculated, hey, we can pay this for a trial. That really hit with creators because every other, even if it's e-commerce, they're going to pay on sales. There's no trial in e-commerce. And if it's SaaS, they're going to pay on the subscription. But we differentiated by paying on the free trial, which influencers really liked, and that's how we differentiated ourselves. So those were the early days. But yeah,
What was the actual thing that you gave on a free trial? Like how much cash, or I'm just curious, like, was it more than $4? Was it meaningful?
yes. So it was on the free trial. I think it was just a while ago. I think it was the whole of the first month. So I think it was
Okay.
$20 or $30 or something
$20.
like that. So even if you drive, let's say you have 10,000 or 20,000 followers, you drive 10 people, it's still like, it's good lunch money, right? And anyway, like, so Sansama you're using daily. It's a daily use product. So there are many excuses throughout the day to post, which is one more thing about influencer marketing or just affiliates in general, is like if you have a once a week use product or a once a month use product, you will not tend to get it'll be difficult to succeed with influence. I'm not saying it's impossible, but then if you have a daily use product, it's much easier because there's just more excuses to create content about you, and all they have to do is post a story and link it.
This was 2018 or 2019?
This was fairly recent. This was 2021, early 2021.
okay.
Yep.
So platform breakdowns, I'm guessing mostly TikTok then?
So Instagram strictly. Again, I'm very much about focus. I know marketers like to write trends. I'm not one of those people. So I'm like, hey, let's just TikTok was trending back then as it is now. But we were like, hey, you know what? Let's just focus on Instagram because fundamentally, I think again it came down to understanding our core user persona. It was someone who wants to focus on their work. Someone who wants to focus on their work likely is not going to be scrolling TikTok nonstop because it's a very ADD platform, for lack of a better description, right? So we were like, let's do Instagram. So started with Instagram, moved on to YouTube. And then after YouTube, did we diversify a little bit into TikTok, but it's still not, it was never like a major portion of the influencers. It was mostly like people who are on Instagram and YouTube who also have a TikTok used to post, but it was never our core platform ever. So yeah.
Got it. And
Yep.
I think this is a good segue into what you're doing now. So I'll tee up the question for you. Back in your Sunsama days, how did you go about finding the influencers? Did you use a platform? Did you just yourself go on Instagram and try to find these people yourself and DM them and ask them for rates? Did you work with an agency?
Early stage, never worked with an agency. Early stage were very scrappy. So just like manually finding people on Instagram, on YouTube, searching for keywords, productivity, persona related keywords. So like we knew that work moms who are part-time or just working moms are a good persona for Sunsama, because they have so much more to manage than the average person. So like they'll have their kids' schedules in their calendar, they would have their schedule in their calendar, and they would like it just easier in one place. That was a core persona. So momfluencers worked really well. But yeah, it was all just scrappy, finding people manually. And then after a point where, up until we got our first maybe 20-25 people, it was all just manual. So we did not use a tool, did not use anything else. It was just like validating the channel and seeing if it works before we invested in any external resources. And at that point, we knew that this is something that was showing some signs of success. I mean, those signs were not necessarily just like the most amount of traffic or sales. It was just like qualitative. So everyone liked it. The influencer liked it. The comments were really, really high quality. So we were like, okay, we can scale this and it will become something meaningful. And that's when we decided to look at tools. So we did sign up for multiple tools. Again, had limited success with them. And then eventually I was pretty clear even at Sunsama that I wanted to start something of my own. And then we started building Saral, and we just used Saral to find the influencers. So yeah.
That's absolutely amazing. From the time you
Yep.
started at Sunsama, from the time to the time you left,
Yep.
I found some stat on it, but I can't seem to see it now. Are you able to share, like, you grew it from X to X using these strategies, or users or revenue or anything of the sort?
Yeah, I can say they 5X'd in my time there. So yeah, I mean, they were early stage.
Amazing.
So they were at let's say around a
5X.
few tens of thousands in MRR, and then they're now at multi-million ARR. So I can give you those numbers, but I don't have the permission to share. But yeah,
Totally fine.
like exact numbers,
Totally
but
fine.
generally they 5X'd almost. So yeah, and importantly, they did it profitably, which is what I think. Because even if they 4X'd, I would be happy, because the important thing for me was, and for them, was that they remained profitable while we did it. Right, there were many opportunities that we could have taken if we had like maybe 2 more million in the bank. We could have raised money, right? But we did not do that. We managed to remain profitable while growing that revenue, which was, as a marketer, it was a much better feeling than if I just blew like 100K a month on Facebook ads and then we 5X'd, right? So yeah. Yep.
Yeah, because it was profitable. You're paying not necessarily
Exactly.
per sign up of paying customer, but per free
Yes.
trial at least, instead of just spending 50K on Facebook ads and hoping that
Exactly.
X
Yep.
percent of
And then
people
actually,
convert.
eventually we moved on to paying for actual customers. So the problem with the trial thing was, it was good until we had, let's say, like 100 or so people, which is still a significant influencer program, but it's still not like you're not famous, right? But as we started growing and as we went on these platforms, like marketplaces and things like that, to get more influencers, what we figured out was there was a lot of scammers especially from the affiliate world, not necessarily influencers who scammed us ever, who went on. They decided that, wait, it's a 20 a month product and they're paying $20 on a free trial. A lot of them created fake accounts, fake trials, and yeah, thankfully we were able to detect them like through some reports of users and through just like looking at data of how people are converting. And some affiliates, like, they never converted. Or like, wait, this person's likely fraudulent, right? Because the conversion rate did not make sense. So yeah, eventually they moved on to doing so I think they still are doing that. It's public. So it's $100 for every customer. So now it's the reverse, where other brands are paying a percentage of what you get of the sale. We're paying a multiple of the sale. So it's $20. Once they pay $20, you make $100, right? And then obviously the retention metrics are there to prove that out. So it's much better. I mean, technically you could still fraud the system by paying the $20 and earning, but then the scammers don't want to do that. So we're pretty
but then
safe
it's a
there.
break even for the scammers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So you joined,
Yep.
they were at like 10 or 20,000 users. You 5X'd it in your time there. If you were to make a pie chart of the acquisition source for the 5X increase, right? The 500,000 or so, or sorry, 50,000 or so.
Yep. Yep.
Public math is not my strong suit,
Yep.
as we learned earlier in failing
Yes.
all my math classes.
Yep.
But the extra, let's call it, 50,000 plus users, if you were to make a pie chart of the acquisition source, what % of them came from influencers versus just pure affiliates versus paid versus word of mouth?
Yep. So I would group influencers and affiliates and word of mouth in just one category, because it was like whoever is word of mouthing us is on the ambassador program. So the ambassador program as a whole was probably like around, say, 45 to 50%. The other, some of it was just pure organic word of mouth, which was like someone tweeted about us, but Twitter was not a platform that we were focused on for the ambassador. So it was just like, hey, someone tweeted. Roughly about 10 to 20% came from there, which is great. And the rest of it was some paid media, some content. A lot eventually later on came from Google. So Google ads were really, really crushing it, because another thing that I again advise anyone who's doing whitelisting is very common in influencers. It's like a fancy word for taking an influencer's post and running ads to it. What you should also do if you're a brand doing influencers is run Google ads. One important learning, because people will look at an influencer's post, they won't buy, then they will Google you, and you better be the top search results there, so that they click on the Google ad and they purchase. So yeah, Google ads did really well for them. So that was the split. So roughly half of it was the ambassador channel, some like miscellaneous word of mouth here and there, and then the rest of it was Google ads. So yeah.
And it sounds like with that strategy, Google ads primarily bidding on your own term, bidding on your own brand name, because people would see it in the wild and they would Google the brand name.
Yep, exactly. And branded search was just extremely cheap once with the influencers. So yeah.
Were you bidding on the influencer's name?
No,
or on the Sunsama brand
on the
name
brand
itself?
name, on the Sunsama brand name. Yep.
Got it. Because you were saying bidding on influencers. That's why I was like bidding on the influencer name.
Yep.
You have this amazing success with Sunsama. You 5X their growth in a short amount of time, and something happens, and then you launch Saral. What was that transition like? How did you come up with the idea for Saral, and what is your new company?
Yeah, pretty seamless transition actually. So I was building it while I was there. So yeah, they were pretty clear about it. They were very, very supportive of it. So yeah, which is why I still help them with they are still customers of Saral. So as a good software founder, I still work with them, help them on other stuff as well. And I have great relationships with everyone there. So yeah, that is nice. And then the transition was just that I always at this point, I had scaled about 4 companies, 4 or 5 to more than $1 million in ARR. And I was just thinking, hey, why am I not doing this for myself? And that was like the foundation of it. And I was like, you know what, this influencer problem seems to be something that's affecting us at Sunsama. And then I started speaking to other people, and it was a real problem. It was just like all the software did not work, was very, very expensive, annual contracts only, think like enterprise software. And there was no like SaaS alternative for startups or early stage brands. So that's what we decided to do at Saral. So that was the origin story. And then eventually we tested it out, launched it in December of last year. And then so far we have about 75 brands on the platform. Excited to hit the 100, some of it thanks to your newsletter as well. But
I love digging into business metrics and CAC and LTV. You don't need to share this, so we can skip this. But I'm curious, how does the CAC and the LTV numbers compare to Sunsama? I'm guessing it's not $20 a month. I should know
it's
this.
Not $20 a month.
You advertise in our newsletter, but what does Saral cost, and what do you get for the cost? And like to walk us through those metrics.
Yeah, so I don't actually have the CAC numbers for Saral in general. I just know that we are overall profitable. So that's a good thing. So
clapping. Yay. Self-funded, right? Fully self-funded, or you took on
fully
investment?
Self-funded. Nope, fully self-funded so far.
We celebrate self-funded, profitable businesses on this podcast, for sure.
Yes, amazing. Yeah, I like that. So like I said, like I generally think that taking venture capital is just cheating. So unless like you're flying rockets into space or something like that, and like take venture, like we might raise capital in a year from now or something like that, right? But we have built a sustainable business before that. Raising venture on the slide deck is just like, I don't know, it's just foolish. So yeah.
I agree. Well, whenever you do raise, if you do, definitely send me a note. I would love to be an
I will.
angel investor if you'd have me. You're a great founder.
Amazing.
You're a great marketer, and I bet on great people, not necessarily great companies or ideas. So I'm
Thank
in.
you. Yep, I
Count me in
will.
for a small check.
Amazing. Yep, I will.
Very cool. And
And then
so
free placements on DTC Daily, right?
we could talk about it. We could talk about it.
Yep.
We can talk about
We'll
it.
add it to the
Discounted for
terms,
sure.
yep.
Discounted for
Yes,
sure.
awesome.
I still have my overhead and my capex to pay for. I got to pay for,
I know.
for growth and
Yep.
everything else. Yeah. So great. We typically end these podcasts with a rapid fire list of questions.
Sure.
Feel free to answer them in a few words or a few sentences, whatever you want. They're kind of simple questions, but I think they really paint a picture of how far you've come and a little bit more about who you are as a person. So we'll just go through these pretty quickly. What is the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
The best piece of advice that oh my God. There have been so many. I think if I were to pick one, do the boring work. So if you're not willing to put in the grind, then even if like it's not necessarily business advice, just in general, and I think this just applies to like everything, not just business, in life, in relationships. If you're not willing to have the hard conversations, if you're not willing to send those 100 emails manually to people, personalized, if you're not willing to do that type of work, which you might not think is high leverage or that like a business owner should do, then it's not going to work out. So I think do the boring work is probably like the best piece of advice that at least I can think of right now, top of mind. So yeah.
I love that. Too many first-time entrepreneurs think that because their title is CEO, that they need to outsource the boring work, or that the boring work is beneath them. So I love that piece of advice. What was your favorite class in college?
My favorite class in college was nothing, actually, because I did not like engineering at all. I flunked. I said I was a good student, but I flunked college. So no favorite. But I can say that my favorite subject in school was definitely physics. I wanted to be a physicist, actually. If like this, so it was this weird combination in my head of academia and business, but I think eventually I've realized that it's just like experimentation that I am in love with more than anything else. So it's like business it's an experiment. So you try a certain thing. Even in marketing, you have a hypothesis. You run an experiment. You see how your subjects react, and then you make a decision. So I think generally, I think experimentation and having that mindset of a scientist was appealing to me, and which is why physics was my favorite subject. So yeah.
I can see the title of the podcast now, From Physicist to Influencer Marketing.
Let's
God. Yeah, introducing Yash, Chavan.
Sure.
Hey, you had success with it as a marketing principal, and now you're building a company in the space. Number 3, what is your biggest career failure?
What is my biggest career failure? Interesting. I guess if I were to do the agency again, I would do it. But again, like, how would I know? Yeah, I think the agency, I would say, was an experiment in just madness. And I did not do things right. So I guess one of the things that I would do different was, I guess, hire better people, which is like those mistakes I am rectifying at Saral. It's like just hire better people and don't just like be a one-man RB almost, like. So I think that's just in general what I would say. But yeah, I haven't had like catastrophic, like I never got fired or anything like that. But yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Or what's the book that you read that was the most impactful on your life or on your career?
Relentless by Tim Grover. I read it when I was pretty young, and it was a good reminder. So yeah, I really like that book. Have you read it?
I have not. What's the biggest
Yeah, you
takeaway, or what's the concept?
It is, so he has this concept about like professional athletes, and I train MMA, so I've always been inspired by pro athletes in general. So that book is about, so Tim Grover was the coach of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and a couple of others, these like greatest of all times. And he's documented how those people think and behave, and how they have this relentless drive to be the best, and how people can implement that in their own fields in their own sport. So that was a good anything that compares life and sport or life and business in general. I like. So yeah, if you like that documentary, then you will like the book Relentless as well. So yeah, and I think Tim Grover has written some other books, but yeah, Relentless it was a great book that I read. So yeah,
Tim Grover. I'm writing it down. I actually have a 5-hour flight tonight, and I'm a big audiobook fan on flights. So I'm
it's a very
downloading that after.
Yeah, it's a great book to check out. So yeah.
Amazing. Okay, final question. You kind of alluded to the fact that you are you practice MMA, but what do you like to do for fun outside of business and influencer marketing and physics?
Yeah, no, my life is, although Oppenheimer will come out soon, so I'm looking forward to that. But the physics nerd in me will rise again. But yes, I think what I do outside, I think I just like mostly right now, because we're so early at Saral, just about 7 months old. Just like in that do the boring work phase, so not a lot of time to do anything outside of work. But as a break, I think just sport and MMA has been really, really good. And it's also like again, MMA, even like, or not just MMA, any martial art, even if you're boxing or doing karate or whatever, it's again about the repetition and like doing the pointless. If you watched Kung Fu Kid or whatever, right? It's like doing the 10,000 repetitions over and over and over again until it does not, even if it does not make sense. And then finally, when you're in the fight, it comes instinctually and you get a knockout and then you win. And then it makes sense why you did the boring work. So I think that mentality and the disciplines from MMA also helps me in business. So yeah, I think it's like a nice holistic circle. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, I love that a few of your answers to the rapid fire questions coincide with each other, doing the boring work and being relentless in the pursuit of the boring work. It sounds like you've done it throughout your career and you're doing it now with Saral. And I just appreciate you taking the time to come on the podcast, answer all my questions, and share some of your insights and knowledge and success stories with us. Where can people find you? What do you want to plug? What do you want to promote?
Yeah. If you're a consumer brand, go to getsaral.com. If you want to work with influencers, pretty simple, straightforward tool. Even if you've never done it before, we've done things inside the app that will basically guide you so you win. Apart from that, if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter, YC the Man, or LinkedIn, same username. So I'm the man, so you can find me. But yeah,
You're the man. You're the man. Saral is Saral, right? Get Saral,
Saral.com. Yep. Saral in Sanskrit means simple, so that's why we named it that. Yeah.
I was gonna ask because I don't know that word, but in Sanskrit it's simple. Okay, simple, straightforward, easy influencer marketing. Saral.
Exactly. Yep.
Cool. All right, Yash. Appreciate you taking the time, and we'll look forward to having you on the podcast soon. Again.
Alrighty. Yeah.
Cheers.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Cheers, Max. Yep.
Thanks for listening to the MarketingMax show. It takes me and my team hours to produce it every single week, but it only takes you 15 seconds to hit that share button and text it to a friend, drop it in a Slack group, or share it on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or any of your favorite social platforms. I appreciate you taking the time to check out my content. Have an awesome day.